The city bus screeched to a halt on a bustling downtown street, its doors hissing open to release a cold puff of morning air. Commuters shuffled on, bundled in coats, clutching coffee cups, and gripping their bags. Among them was Clara Johnson, a poised woman in her early 70s. She carried herself with quiet strength, her polished shoes clicking against the floor as she stepped aboard, nodding politely to the driver. Behind the wheel was Frank Winters, a stocky man in his late 50s. His jaw tightened as Clara dropped her coins into the fare box, then paused to adjust her balance before moving toward the front of the bus. "Move it along, lady," Winters snapped, his tone impatient. Clara looked up at him briefly, her face calm. Without a word, she walked down the aisle and settled into an empty seat near the front. Her hand rested lightly on the cold silver pole as the bus jerked into motion, and she scanned the faces of the other passengers. Some avoided her gaze, while others seemed lost in their own thoughts. "Not there," Winters barked, his voice cutting through the quiet. Clara stopped mid-motion and turned to face him. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," he said gruffly. "Seats up front aren't for you. Back of the bus." A hush fell over the passengers. A young mother with a squirming toddler glanced away nervously. A man in a suit shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Clara's expression remained steady as she took a deliberate step forward. "I've paid my fare," she said, her voice clear and even. "I'll sit where I please." Winters slammed the brakes, causing the bus to lurch violently. Several passengers reached out to steady themselves, gripping poles and seatbacks. Winters stood abruptly, pointing a finger at Clara. "You don't make the rules here," he snarled. "Either you move to the back, or you're off this bus. Your choice." A murmur spread through the bus as passengers exchanged uneasy glances. Toward the middle, a young man wearing headphones pulled out his phone. The faint red light of the camera app flickered as he began recording. Clara straightened her back and looked him squarely in the eye. "I'm not going anywhere," she replied firmly. Winter's face turned a deep shade of red. "We'll see about that," he growled, grabbing the radio from his console. "Dispatch. This is Route 15. I have a passenger refusing to comply, requesting transit security at my location." The tension thickened as Winters stomped back to his seat. Passengers whispered among themselves, their voices rising and falling like waves. The young man with the phone angled his camera to capture Clara's steady demeanor, her fingers gripping the pole as if to anchor herself amid the storm. Clara's voice broke through the whispers. "This isn't just about me," she said, addressing the passengers. "It's about doing what's right. Spare us the speech." Winters snapped, turning to glare at her. "You're off this bus the second security gets here." A little boy seated with his mother tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, why is the driver yelling at her?" he asked loudly. The mother hushed him quickly, glancing nervously at Winters. Clara smiled gently at the child. "Sometimes people don't like being challenged when they know they're wrong," she said softly. "Don't talk to him," Winters barked, his frustration boiling over. The passengers flinched at the sharpness of his tone. "You're digging yourself into a hole, man," the young man with the phone called out, his voice calm but pointed. "Everyone's going to see this." Winters whirled around, his glare shifting to the young man. "Stay out of it. This isn't your business." "You made it everyone's business when you stopped the bus," the young man shot back, raising his phone higher. The faint sound of a siren grew louder, signaling the arrival of transit security. The passengers fell silent, their attention fixed on the unfolding drama. Clara remained standing, her expression resolute. Hashtag the confrontation grows. The bus door hissed open, and two officers in dark uniforms stepped aboard. Winters wasted no time, jabbing a finger toward Clara. "She's refusing to follow the rules," he said, his voice laced with indignation, holding up the bus and causing a scene. One of the officers turned to Clara, his expression neutral but firm. "Ma'am, we've been called because you're refusing to comply. Can you explain what's going on?" "I paid my fare like everyone else," Clara said calmly. "He told me to move to the back for no reason other than his own prejudice." "That's not true," Winters interrupted. his voice rising. These seats are priority seating, and she doesn't belong here. The officer hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Ma'am, the easiest thing would be to move to another seat, he said cautiously. We're just trying to resolve this without further delay. Clara shook her head, her tone unwavering. I'm not the one causing the delay. He is. If I move, it'll only reinforce his behavior. A teenage girl near the front stood abruptly, her voice trembling but resolute. She's right. Why should she have to move? He's the one making a scene. Winters turned on her. You want to get thrown off too? Sit down. That's enough. The first officer interjected sharply. Let us handle this. You're making this worse for yourself. Man, the young man with the phone said. This video is already online. People are going to see this. Winter's face turned beet red, his jaw tightening as his authority slipped further from his grasp. ####, a movement takes shape. The chant from outside grew louder. Let her sit. Let her sit. Pedestrians gathered near the bus, their phones raised, capturing the growing crowd. Signs appeared, hastily scrawled with phrases like "Justice for Clara" and "End racism now." Inside the bus, Clara finally took her seat. Her quiet defiance radiated strength. Passengers began speaking out, emboldened by her stance. A middle-aged man stood, his voice cutting through the tension. This isn't 1955. She has every right to sit where she wants. One of the officers turned to Winters, his tone hard. Driver, if you can't de-escalate this, you'll be the one facing consequences. Winters scoffed but said nothing, his grip on the steering wheel tightening. Outside, the crowd's chants grew deafening. Reporters arrived, their cameras trained on the scene as tension boiled over. Winters, now visibly rattled, grabbed the radio again. Dispatch. This is Route 15, he barked. The crowd's out of control. Send more officers. ###, justice prevails. The officers re-entered the bus and approached Clara. Ma'am, we'll ensure this incident is documented, one said, his tone softening. Do you want to press charges? Yes. Clara replied firmly. This behavior cannot go unchecked. The officers turned to Winters. Driver, step off the bus. You're under arrest for assault. The passengers erupted in applause as Winters was led away in handcuffs, his protests drowned out by the cheers from the crowd outside. Cameras flashed, capturing every moment as Clara became a symbol of defiance and dignity. This story stands as a testament to resilience and the power of standing against prejudice. Clara Johnson's quiet courage not only held one man accountable, but ignited a movement for justice that would resonate far beyond that bus ride. Would you like me to refine or add further details to this expanded version?